Brodes Media.
The Sixers have an opportunity, and I believe it's time as Sixers fans to emotionally prepare for a run to the NBA Finals. The combination of Joel Embiid and James Harden absolutely should put us in a position to put our heart right on the table and say, let's go. Not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Not, no, they're not good enough, and I'm afraid of the bench or I'm afraid of Doc Rivers. This team has the superstar talent to accomplish the goal. And when you analyze what's going on in the Eastern Conference with the Celtics and the Heat and the Bucks and the Cavs and the Bulls, the Sixers are right there. And honestly, in terms of duos, I love Harden and Embiid. Even though we haven't seen them play yet, I love those players and the talent of those two individuals over Lowry and Jimmy Butler. I like them more than Tatum and Jalen Brown. I like them more than a lot of these names. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. Embiid is playing like a monster. You saw it yesterday. The dude would have been the All-Star Game MVP, of course, if it wasn't for what Steph Curry was doing. He was obnoxious and he was unbelievable. He was shooting from everywhere. I wonder what Ben Simmons was thinking about throughout that time of that game going down. And I already saw some of the comments while I was waiting to put the show on live, and I got tweeted at on Twitter. Brodes, this guy lives in your head rent-free. No, this guy stinks at basketball, and he's watching everybody in the NBA shoot the basketball. What goes through his mind when he sees players and the ability to shoot the ball the way they do? Garland had some deep shots. LeBron James to end it with that unbelievable one-footer in Cleveland. Pretty cool moment. Took away from our guy Joel, who was getting fouled, and he was earning some free throws. I love it. You could tell how determined he was to win that damn thing. But it really is more of just a defining moment of what mindset Joel is having this season and how badly he wants things. When he's determined and his will is so damn high, the ceiling is high. So basically, my point here today is to stress that it is time to take your heart and say, NBA Finals run this season, absolutely. When you have this type of talent at the top tier, you now have to change your expectations. And it's okay to change expectations as the season progresses. And there's plenty of examples to kind of define what I'm saying here. Back when the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, they started out the season before with a 7-9 record and entered the season with the second year of Doug Peterson after everyone wanted him fired. And they end up going on a run. But some point throughout that season, you realize, wow, against Carolina, wow, against Denver. Then your brain started to switch and you realize there's something different about this team. They have the it factor. And then eventually, emotionally, you pulled the trigger on, oh yeah, they are a serious weapon. They're a threat and they can win the Super Bowl. Throughout the season, their play dictated that. Let's go to the Washington Nationals, the Atlanta Braves. Nobody thought the Atlanta Braves and the Washington Nationals were going to win any sort of championship. The Nationals stunk. They were miserable. Then at one point, it started to click on all cylinders, and even fans who were not living in Washington, fans of baseball who studied the Nationals and their play, you went, oh, damn, hold on a second. Do you see what they're doing? Maybe their bullpen, then they start moving around their starters, and they get creative with how they're utilizing the bullpen, and then hold on a second. Now we're winning a championship. They do it. The Atlanta Braves, they should sell at the deadline. They're not good. Look at the NL East. There's no way they're buyers. If they buy, they're stupid. Ronald Acuna Jr. got hurt. Freddie Freeman at one point started the season on such a miserable run. Hold on a second. They got back in action. They realized we can actually do some damage. They go on a run. At some point, expectations within their respected seasons dictated the pulse of the fan base and the realization that there is something here because it's clicking. When you look at Joel Embiid and James Harden, and trust me, you'll get the sense that it can click. When you have this type of firepower at the top of your roster, you want to talk about flaws. The Atlanta Braves had flaws. The Washington Nationals had flaws. The Philadelphia Eagles did have flaws. Now, here's the opposite example. The Philadelphia Phillies a few years ago were in first place. Nobody was at Citizens Bank Park. Nobody believed in that team. Nobody wanted to think that they had what it took because that sniff test was just false. There was no real legitimacy to them being in first place in the NL East. You just had the sense that it was crap. And what do you know? August rolls around. They go on one of the most historic collapses that we've seen in Phillies baseball, which is pretty ridiculous considering how much of a failure that organization has been outside of that 2008 to 2011 run that we enjoyed so much. Obviously, there were teams that did make more noise than others, but it's a losing franchise for a reason. You could just sense that it's off. Don't fully invest. And we were properly correct. Right now with this 76ers team, it is time to fully invest. Now, that doesn't mean if they don't get it done, they're screwed and there's nothing Daryl Morey can do and they're in some awful position, because that's not true whatsoever. There is this 2 to 3 year window that's opening up between this combination of two superstar talent. But it matters when you have this type of special play and Joel Embiid being the monster that he is, where I'm ready to go absolutely all in. And I put up a Twitter poll yesterday when I was on The Fanatic, and I asked a very similar question, and here were the results. And this is where I'm a little bit baffled. Okay, so are you ready to commit all in to a Sixers NBA Finals run? Yes, 1,000%, 79% of people chose that. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Maybe. I mean, they can, but sure, they're in the mix, but I don't know. Obviously, they have an opportunity to, but I'm not going to tell you that they will. That type of message. 17% of people. And then 4% of people say no, they're not good enough. So there's 21% of the people out there that analyze where the 76ers are, and they are not ready to go with the emotional pool. And I wonder, is that because it sets you up for a potential heartbreak? Are you afraid of failing and then your heart being ripped in half, where the cautiously optimistic approach is something that keeps you with a escape? Basically, you're giving yourself an escape by not convincing yourself it's going to happen. So if it doesn't, hey, just show me when you're there and then I'll believe. So you have an opportunity to back out of things. That's not where we're at. I am absolutely going full throttle because I've seen this league play out, and I've studied and I've analyzed a lot of squads that ended up holding that Larry O'Brien trophy. And a lot of those teams had flaws too. They were not the greatest in every single area, but where they were fantastic was their top-tier talent. And that's what the Sixers have. And they have a good combination of a third star in two players, in Tyrese Maxey and in Tobias Harris. And that 3A, 3B concept, I really believe, puts them in that third star category. Like, yeah, they have an issue rebounding the basketball. Keep in mind, James Harden averages 8 rebounds per game, and that's nothing to laugh at when you do struggle in that department. They might not have the most elite defense in the entire world, and maybe that ends up giving them some tough moments and some tough stretches throughout a playoff series. You want to talk about depth? I'll tell you that the starters are going to be playing 40 minutes. So those 8 minutes or so of getting creative and getting cute with the George Niang, a Danny Green, a backup big man. Yeah, Doc Rivers, I know, scares a lot of people with his rotations. But if your starters that are legitimate, and Embiid and Harden, 40 minutes of play, that's 40 minutes of play of the best talent out there. And you got to hold the fort down with the other 8. And sure, I'm not telling you that can't be a difference maker. It absolutely can. Now, Doc Rivers said publicly that it's going to be different when he has 4 guys that he can stagger through his lineups. He's going to have a Maxey, a Tobias, a Harden, a Joel. All right, Doc. Well, then show me. You can't just say that and not back that up and support it by doing what you're actually saying, or else the media will probably throw a question your way, and then you better not counter with some sort of disgust and pissed off mindset like you've done in the past whenever there was a question that you maybe didn't like or you were being held accountable. Come on, Doc. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I'm ready. The moral of the story is I sit here today on February 21st, and I tell you that I am absolutely 1,000% ready to let this thing go. Absolutely. I'm ready to let this heart fly out there and go full throttle 76ers mode. And normally I look at the cautiously optimistic, and I understand what is out there in the Eastern Conference, and I think that plays a role. It's not just how strong I feel about the Sixers, but it's also the surrounding pieces, and there's no one that I have so much fear in. That doesn't mean that there's not a team that could beat you. Can the Milwaukee Bucks beat you in a 7-game series? Absolutely, yes. Yes, they can. Sure, they can. But there's no LeBron James on the Cavaliers or the Miami Heat. And when you look at those Miami Heat teams, we did this exercise. I was telling you, I was listening to the radio. Mikey Miss laid it out perfectly. It was a good exercise of looking at the Miami Heat and looking at some of these other teams that went for a championship run, and you look at their bench. The reason why they won was not because of their bench. It's because for the 39 minutes of play that their starters were out there, they executed. They dominated. They put up 30. They grabbed 10 rebounds. Now, they don't have LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, but there's also not a team in this league this year that has that type of power. It is more wide open. I don't think you need that level of wow that the Miami Heat had during that run in this year when you analyze who the Celtics are, who the Heat are, who the Bucks are, who the Chicago Bulls are. So yes, of course, I will use context and the surrounding pieces to justify why I feel the way that I do.
Whose idea was it to basically play the newlyweds game with Steph Curry Saturday night?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea.
Like, as bad as the dunk contest was, I was just sat there with my dad watching. We were like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I know. You know what? A lot of these, I'm torn in the middle. Here's why. And the NHL does the same thing, not to that level, but they try things that are so out there, and it's like I give them the nod for saying, hey, at least you're trying something different. But then the other side of me goes, why is it this? In what world was this what you decided to elect to do? Out of everything that you're trying new, this is what we end up dealing with? I don't know how that happens. Who made that decision?
Yeah, it was bizarre to me. But then the other thing, just looking at the buyout market, just because you were flirting with that a little bit earlier, not that like we're guaranteed to get anything, but if you had to choose, would you rather bring in someone with a little bit more size, say like strength and rebounding, or would you rather bring in someone with more of a guard presence? It's kind of a debate that I've been going with.
No, it's a great question, and it's interesting you bring that up because I had Rich Hoffman on as my guest Saturday, and I actually asked him a very similar question in terms of, okay, what do you do at the buyout market? Because he was discussing how Thibault is an issue, but then you think about the alternatives and what do you have. So I mentioned a Gary Harris as someone who can give you a respectful amount of minutes on the defensive side, but also has the ability to drain a shot, which right now it's like you have Thibault who can't drain a shot but brings you defense, and then you have Furkan who, I mean, I'll say he can hit a shot, even though I despise him. He can hit a shot but can't defend a lick. So he made it clear, though, that what he's hearing around the Sixers is they're looking for a backup big man to Joel Embiid, but what he would do is look more towards a Gary Harris. And I agree with that. They probably need to go in that direction over the big man, but they're probably going to go with the big man.
No, I agree. It's definitely two interesting ways to look at it. But I think just overall, I think a more guard presence that brings you some defense, maybe not to the level of Thibault, but more so towards just being able to score would be a little bit more of a better help.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. That's a great call. More about just being an option offensively, being something. I mean, really, Gary Harris will give you respectful defense and the ability to have respect on the offensive side. We're looking for respect. Right now, you got someone who's disrespected on the offensive side in Matisse Thybulle, and then Furkan Korkmaz, who's disrespected on the defensive side. You got to find someone who can hold their ground and hold their head above water for sure. See, if you think about Matisse Thybulle, if you're Joel Embiid, right, and you're getting the ball in the post, and you're defending Matisse, and you slide down to double Joel Embiid, and then Joel Embiid kicks it out to Matisse, guess what? They're not sliding or rotating over where the ball is now going to swing around the perimeter for a wide open shot. There's no swinging involved. The ball's not moving. They say, go ahead, shoot it, because we'll live with Thibault shooting threes over Embiid in the low block or on the low block or facing up or anything like that. So there's no sliding or anything like that. They'll live with it, and it stings, and it will hurt you consistently.